Ambassador Vekthal of the Zorvani Empire adjusted his ceremonial carapace nervously as the human diplomatic vessel Endeavour descended through Kepler 442b's atmosphere. His 4 eyes tracked the sleek craft as it settled onto the designated landing pad with surprising grace for such a primitive species. "Remember," he chittered to his aide, Krillnex, "these humans are a young species. We must be patient with their crude ways." The airlock hissed open, and 3 figures emerged. The lead human was tall, with graying hair and confident posture. Behind him walked a woman with sharp eyes and a younger man carrying recording equipment. "Ambassador Vekthal," the lead human said, extending his hand. "I'm Captain Marcus Rivera. This is Dr. Elena Vasquez, our xenobiologist, and Lieutenant James Park, our cultural attaché." Vekthal carefully touched the human's appendage with his own manipulator. The warmth surprised him. These creatures ran remarkably hot compared to his own kind. "Welcome to Zephyria Prime," Vekthal replied through his translator device. "We are honored by your visit. The Zorvani Empire looks forward to peaceful relations with your United Earth Federation." As they walked toward the settlement, Dr. Vasquez kept glancing at the purple-leaved forests. "Fascinating ecosystem," she murmured. "Captain, are those the creatures the ambassador mentioned?" What did you call them, Ambassador?" "The Zenthari," Vekthal said, a tremor in his voice. "We do not speak of them often. They are best avoided." Through the canopy, a low, rumbling roar echoed across the valley. Vekthal and his aide immediately pressed themselves against the nearest building, their carapaces shifting to darker, camouflaged patterns. The humans, however, looked toward the sound with what Vekthal could only describe as interest. "Apex predator?" Captain Rivera asked casually. "The apex of all apexes," Vekthal whispered. 12 feet tall, armored hide that deflects our strongest weapons, claws that can rend metal, and hunting intelligence that rivals our own. The Zenthari are the reason we built our cities in the sky reaches. They ruled this planet for millions of years before we learned to fly. Dr. Vasquez was now practically vibrating with excitement. "Remarkable! Captain, we absolutely must study them during our stay." Vekthal's translator crackled as it struggled to process his horrified chittering. "Study them? No, no, no. Dr. Vasquez, you must understand. The Zenthari are not to be studied. They are to be survived." The next morning, Captain Rivera found Ambassador Vekthal in the diplomatic quarters, surrounded by holographic displays showing Zorvani historical records. "I wanted to thank you for your hospitality," Rivera said, settling into a specially constructed chair. "Dr. Vasquez has been fascinated by your biological surveys." "It is our pleasure," Vekthal replied, though his translator struggled with the concept. "Tell me, Captain Rivera, what does your species consider dangerous?" Rivera leaned back thoughtfully. "Well, there are venomous creatures on Earth, snakes, spiders, marine life. We have large predators too, bears, big cats, sharks. Weather can be deadly, hurricanes, tornadoes. Why do you ask?" Vekthal's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep confusion. "And how do your people respond to these threats?" "Oh, we deal with them," Rivera said with a shrug. "Some people keep snakes as pets, others hunt bears. We swim with sharks for recreation. My grandmother used to chase tornadoes in her retirement, said it kept her young." The ambassador's translator went silent for 10 seconds before emitting a confused warble. "Your grandmother chased destructive weather patterns for enjoyment? Storm chasing is popular back home. Great weekend activity." Rivera showed Vekthal a video of tornado chasers. "See, some people even do it professionally." Vekthal watched in horror as humans deliberately drove toward a massive, destructive atmospheric phenomenon, whooping with joy as debris flew past their windows. "This is Recreation? He whispered. Oh, sure. Though the really crazy ones surf during hurricanes. Now that takes skill. Before Vekthal could process this, Dr. Vasquez burst into the room, eyes bright with excitement. Captain, Ambassador, I've been analyzing the forest ecosystem data. The Zenthari behavioral patterns suggest they might be territorial rather than purely aggressive. If we could observe one in its natural habitat. Dr. Vasquez, Vekthal interrupted, his carapace shifting to warning colors. I must insist you abandon this thinking. The Zenthari are not creatures to be observed. They are living nightmares that have haunted our species for millennia. But surely, with proper precautions. There are no proper precautions. Vekthal's translator crackled with distress. They can track through any terrain, climb any surface, break through any barrier. They are perfectly evolved killing machines. Dr. Vasquez's eyes lit up even brighter. Fascinating. Captain, this could be the discovery of a lifetime. Vekthal looked between the two humans and felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. There was something fundamentally wrong with these creatures' survival instincts.
Absolutely not! Ambassador Veksthal's translator practically sparked with vehemence. I will not authorize an expedition into Zenthari territory. The answer is, has been, and will remain absolutely not. Dr. Vasquez spread her hands reasonably. Ambassador, we're not asking for a hunting party, just a simple observation mission. We'll stay at safe distance, use our ship's sensors. Safe distance? Veksthal's carapace shifted to panic colors. There is no safe distance. The Zenthari can leap nearly 100 meters. They smell prey from kilometers away. They hunt in coordinated packs. Captain Rivera leaned forward. Ambassador, humans have dealt with similar predators on our world. We have protocols. What you describe as similar predators are nothing like the Zenthari. Vekthal chittered frantically. Show me your Earth predators. Dr. Vasquez pulled up her tablet, scrolling through images. Well, there are Kodiak bears, they can weigh up to 1,500 pounds, saltwater crocodiles, over 20 feet long, Siberian tigers, incredible ambush predators. Vekthal examined each image with growing confusion. And humans coexist with these creatures? Oh, we do more than coexist, Lieutenant Park chimed in. My uncle runs bear watching tours in Alaska, gets tourists right up close to feeding bears. We relocate problem crocodiles instead of killing them, Dr. Vasquez added. And tiger conservation is a major effort on Earth. Conservation? Veksthal's translator seemed to malfunction. You preserve these predators? Of course, they're part of the ecosystem. Besides, they're magnificent animals. Vekthal was quiet for a long moment. Show me humans interacting with these magnificent predators. What followed was the most terrifying hour of Veksthal's life. Video after video of humans swimming with sharks, wrestling alligators, hand-feeding bears, walking past lions, free-diving with great whites, and something called bull running, where humans deliberately place themselves in front of charging megafauna. This human, Vekthal pointed with a shaking manipulator at a video of a man grappling with a massive crocodile, is he playing with this predator? Steve Irwin, Dr. Vasquez said fondly, legendary conservationist. He educated millions about wildlife. By wrestling it? Hands-on approach was his trademark. From outside, another deep roar echoed through the valley. Instead of diving for cover, all three humans turned toward the sound with unmistakable anticipation. Ambassador, Dr. Vasquez said quietly, we're going to observe the Zenthari. The only question is whether we do it with your guidance or without it. Vekthal realized they weren't asking for permission. They were being polite. 3 hours later, Vekthal found himself crammed into a human hover vehicle speeding through the forest canopy towards certain doom. His survival instincts screamed at him to flee, but he couldn't abandon these clearly suicidal aliens to their fate. Thermal readings are off the charts about 2 kilometers ahead, Lieutenant Park reported from the sensor station. Whatever's out there, it's big and runs hot. Multiple heat signatures, Dr. Vasquez added, voice tight with excitement. At least 3 distinct sources. Captain, I think we found a pack. A pack? Vexthal's carapace had shifted to such dark camouflage colors that he was nearly invisible. They hunt in packs? Apparently so, Rivera said calmly, piloting between massive tree trunks. That suggests complex social structure. Intelligence. Yes, they are intelligent. Vextal chittered desperately. That's what makes them so dangerous. They plan, they coordinate, they remember. Fascinating, Dr. Vasquez murmured. Apex predators with pack dynamics and long-term memory. The evolutionary pressures must have been incredible. A massive crash echoed through the forest ahead. Trees, each easily 100 feet tall, toppled like grass before some unseen force. Should we, perhaps, maintain greater distance? Vextal suggested hopefully. We need visual confirmation, Rivera replied, adjusting their approach. Park, get the recording equipment ready. Through the transparent canopy, Vextal caught his first glimpse of a Zenthari in over a decade. 12 feet of muscle and armor, moving with liquid grace despite its massive bulk. Its head swiveled toward their vehicle with predatory intelligence, and Vextal saw recognition in those burning yellow eyes. It sees us, he whispered. Good, Dr. Vasquez said, completely missing the point. Look at that musculature. The bone density readings are incredible. The Zenthari let out a roar that vibrated through the vehicle's hull. It's calling to the others, Vexthal whimpered. 2 more Zenthari emerged from the forest, flanking their position with tactical precision. Pack coordination, Lieutenant Park observed. They're trying to surround us. Should we retreat? Vexthal asked hopefully. Captain Rivera studied the creatures. No, I want to see what they do next. What they did next was charge. 3 massive predators launched themselves toward the hover vehicle with terrifying speed. Evasive maneuvers! Vexthal shrieked. Hold steady, Rivera said calmly. I want to see how fast they are. Vexthal was fairly certain he experienced cardiac episode as the lead Zenthari's claws scraped against their hull, missing by mere inches. Incredible! Dr. Vasquez was practically pressed against the canopy. Did you see that leap? The power-to-weight ratio must be extraordinary. Below them, the 3 Zenthari paced back and forth, clearly frustrated by their prey's escape into the 3rd dimension. They're problem-solving, Lieutenant Park noted. Look, the one on the left is testing tree stability. It's looking for a way to reach us. We should leave, Vextal pleaded. We should leave right now and never come back, and maybe build a monument to our narrow escape from death. Dr. Vasquez was taking detailed scans. The bone structure suggests they could probably climb these trees if they needed to, but the energy expenditure would be significant for creatures this size. As if summoned by her words, the lead Zenthari backed up several steps, then launched itself at the nearest massive tree trunk. Its claws found purchase in the bark, and it began to climb with deliberate, terrifying purpose. "Oh," said Captain Rivera mildly. "That's new." "New?" Vexthal's translator nearly exploded. "What do you mean, new?" "I mean," Rivera said, slowly backing the hover vehicle away from the climbing nightmare, "we should probably document this behavior and then discuss it somewhere else. Preferably," Lieutenant Park added, "somewhere with very thick walls and multiple escape routes." For the first time since meeting the humans, Vexthal felt a spark of hope. Perhaps their survival instincts weren't completely broken after all. "So, let me understand this correctly," Captain Rivera said, settling back in his chair. "Your entire civilization has been confined to aerial cities for thousands of years because of these predators?" Vexthal's carapace rippled with embarrassed colors.
The Xanthari claimed the surface long before we achieved flight. Once we took to the sky reaches, it seemed prudent to remain there. But surely there have been attempts to reclaim ground territory, Dr. Vasquez pressed. Scientific expeditions, resource gathering? Occasionally, Vekthal admitted. We have some automated mining stations with heavy defensive barriers. But any operation requiring Zorvani presence, the losses were always too great. Lieutenant Park was reviewing their expedition footage. These creatures are impressive, but they're still biological. They have limitations. What weapons have you tried? Everything, Vekthal's translator crackled with frustration. Energy weapons barely penetrate their hide. Projectile weapons require direct hits to vital organs. Explosives are problematic in forest environments. And they learn, Lieutenant Park. They adapt. Captain Rivera exchanged glances with his team. Ambassador, would you be open to a collaborative approach to your Xanthari problem? Collaborative approach? Humans have experience with predator management, Dr. Vasquez explained. We might suggest some alternatives to your current strategy. Vekthal's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. You wish to help us fight the Xanthari? Actually, Rivera said, we were thinking more along the lines of coexistence. The ambassador's translator went silent for several seconds. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? My translator seems to have malfunctioned. Coexistence, Lieutenant Park repeated, living alongside them without constant conflict. You want to live with the Xanthari? On the same planet? Breathing the same air? We do it on Earth, Dr. Vasquez said reasonably. We have major cities in regions with large predator populations. It's about understanding behavior patterns and respecting territory. Vekthal was quiet for a long moment. Dr. Vasquez, I watched your documentary footage yesterday. I saw humans living near creatures that could kill them. But Earth predators seem smaller than the Xanthari. Well, not always, Rivera said. Show him the blue whale footage, Park. Lieutenant Park pulled up a video of marine biologists swimming alongside a creature that dwarfed the Xanthari several times over. This creature, Vekthal pointed with a shaking manipulator, is larger than our orbital transport vessels. And you swim with it? Blue whales are filter feeders, Dr. Vasquez explained. They eat tiny organisms, completely harmless. But surely you have predators of similar size? The humans exchanged looks. Show him the tiger shark footage, Rivera said quietly. What followed was 20 minutes of humans freediving with predators that, while smaller than Xanthari, were arguably more terrifying in their efficiency. Sleek, fast, and armed with rows of serrated teeth. These humans, Vekthal whispered, watching a diver hand-feed a massive tiger shark. Are they specialists, warriors trained from birth for this purpose? That's actually a marine biologist, Lieutenant Park said. She has a PhD in oceanography. A scholar? A researcher? Her name's Dr. Ocean Ramsey. She studies shark behavior to promote conservation efforts. Vekthal's carapace had gone completely transparent with shock. Your scholars voluntarily swim with apex predators to study them? Pretty standard practice in xenobiology, Dr. Vasquez said. You can't really understand a species without observing it in its natural habitat. Which brings us back to our original proposal, Captain Rivera said. With your permission, we'd like to attempt direct contact with the Xanthari. Contact? Vekthal's voice cracked through the translator. As in, meeting them? Deliberately? It's the logical next step, Dr. Vasquez said. We've observed their pack behavior, their territorial patterns, their problem-solving abilities. Now we need to assess their communication capabilities. Vekthal looked at the 3 humans and realized they weren't discussing a scientific expedition. They were planning to walk up to the most dangerous predators on the planet and try to have a conversation. He was beginning to suspect that humans might be the most terrifying species in the galaxy.
The clearing that Dr. Vasquez had selected for their contact attempt was, in Vextel's opinion, far too open, far too isolated, and far too close to known Xanthari territory. He huddled inside the portable shelter the humans had erected, watching through transparent walls as the team prepared their equipment. "This is insane," he chittered to himself. "This is beyond insane." "Exciting," Lieutenant Park suggested, checking audio recording equipment. "First documented attempt at interspecies communication with the Xanthari. This is going to make xenobiological history." "If any of us survive to publish it," Vextel muttered. Dr. Vasquez was setting up some kind of offering in the clearing center, large portions of Zorvani livestock she'd somehow convinced the colony to provide. "Based on our behavioral observations, they should be curious about this unusual food placement. The controlled environment should trigger their investigative instincts." "And if their investigative instincts involve eating us?" Vextel asked. "Then we'll have learned something important about their dietary preferences," she replied cheerfully. A deep rumble echoed through the forest, closer than Vextel had ever heard before. His carapace immediately shifted to maximum camouflage, making him nearly invisible. "There," Captain Rivera said, pointing toward the tree line. "3 of them, approaching from the east." The Xanthari emerged from the forest with predatory grace, their massive forms moving surprisingly quietly. They paused at the clearing's edge, clearly aware of the humans' presence. "Look at that body language," Dr. Vasquez whispered. "Alert but not aggressive, curious rather than hostile." "How can you possibly tell?" Vextel demanded. "Ear position, tail movement, posture," Lieutenant Park explained. "We use similar cues to read predator behavior on Earth." The lead Xanthari took a careful step into the clearing, its burning yellow eyes fixed on the offering. The other 2 flanked it, maintaining protective positions. Captain Rivera slowly stepped out of the shelter. "What are you doing?" Vextel's translator practically screamed. "Making contact," Rivera said calmly. He walked slowly toward the clearing center, hands visible and empty. The Xanthari's attention immediately focused on him. The lead creature's massive head tilted slightly, studying this strange new type of prey that didn't run. Rivera stopped about 20 meters from the offering and slowly sat down on the ground. "He's making himself smaller," Dr. Vasquez explained. "Non-threatening posture, showing he's not competing for the food." The lead Xanthari approached the offering cautiously, never taking its eyes off Rivera. "Fascinating," Lieutenant Park murmured. "It's not gorging itself, very controlled feeding behavior." As the Xanthari fed, Rivera began to speak in low, calm tones. Not words exactly, but a series of gentle sounds that seemed to catch the creature's attention. "What is he saying?" Vextel asked. "Nothing specific," Dr. Vasquez replied. "He's just talking to it, letting it get used to human vocalizations." The Xanthari finished feeding and looked directly at Rivera. For a long moment, human and apex predator regarded each other across the clearing. Then the Xanthari made a sound Vextel had never heard before, a low, rumbling vocalization that wasn't quite a roar. Rivera responded with a similar sound. The creature's massive head tilted again, and it took a step closer to the human. Is it trying to communicate?" Vextel whispered. "Looks like it," Dr. Vasquez breathed. "Rivera, try the sequence again." For the next hour, Vextel watched in amazement as Captain Rivera engaged in what could only be described as a conversation with the most feared predator on the planet. The exchange was simple, just vocalizations and body language, but there was an unmistakable intelligence behind the Xanthari's responses. When the session finally ended and the 3 Xanthari melted back into the forest, Rivera returned to the shelter with an expression of quiet satisfaction. "Well?" Dr. Vasquez asked. "They're definitely intelligent," he said, "and they're curious about us. I think they might be as interested in contact as we are." Vextel stared at the human who had just spent an hour chatting with death incarnate. "Captain Rivera," he said slowly, "what exactly are humans?" Rivera considered the question seriously. "We're explorers, Ambassador. It's what we do." 2 weeks later, Ambassador Vextel found himself in an unthinkable situation, preparing for a formal dinner with the Xanthari. I still don't understand how this happened, he chittered nervously, watching the humans make final preparations in their unofficial meeting ground. It's quite logical, Dr. Vasquez explained, adjusting portable cooking equipment. Once we established basic communication, the next step was cultural exchange. In most species, sharing food is a fundamental bonding ritual. But we're going to be the food, Vexthal protested. No, we're going to share food with them, Captain Rivera corrected. There's a significant difference. Over 2 weeks, the humans had made remarkable progress. They'd established that the Zenthari were highly intelligent, with complex social structure and rudimentary language. More importantly, they'd discovered the creatures weren't purely aggressive. They were protective guardians of the planet's ecosystem. The first Zenthari arrived at sunset, moving with characteristic silent grace. The lead creature, Alpha, as Dr. Vasquez called it, approached with unmistakable curiosity. The humans had prepared a feast that defied logic. Instead of offering usual livestock, they'd prepared cuts from various herbivorous species, seasoned with local vegetation and cooked with methods that filled the clearing with incredible aromas. But the shocking part was that the humans had prepared similar portions for themselves. "You're going to eat the same food as the Zenthari?" Vexthal asked in horror. "Of course," Dr. Vasquez said, settling at their rough table. "It's a shared meal. The whole point is eating together." Alpha approached cautiously, its massive form dwarfing the human furniture. Captain Rivera took the first bite, chewing thoughtfully. "Not bad, bit gamey, but the seasoning helps." Alpha watched with fascination. Slowly, deliberately, the massive predator lowered its head and began to feed. As the meal progressed, the atmosphere changed. The Zenthari's body language shifted from cautious alertness to something approaching relaxation. Alpha even made soft rumbling sounds that Dr. Vasquez identified as possible pleasure expressions. Halfway through, Alpha did something that made Vexthal's eyes go wide. The creature reached across with one clawed appendage and gently pushed a choice piece of meat toward Captain Rivera. "It's sharing with us," Vexthal breathed. "Basic social bonding," Rivera said, accepting the offering with thanks. "This is how pack bonds form." As evening progressed, more Zenthari emerged from the forest. What had started as diplomatic contact evolved into celebration. The creatures began vocalizing in complex patterns that sounded almost like singing. Looking around at the impossible scene, Vexthal realized he was witnessing the moment when humanity's greatest strength changed an entire world's fate.